Welcome to the Emphasis podcast. In this episode, we explore a central piece of the project's methodology. How do we identify where change can actually happen in complex agricultural systems? To guide us, we are joined by two colleagues who have been at the heart of developing the theories of change and identifying the leverage points across our study, together with another colleague of us that couldn't be today here, Maria Roglic. First, Elsa Dinkun, from the cost chair of the Montpellier Business School. Elsa works at the intersection of sustainable agriculture, governance, and stakeholder engagement. Her research combines biophysical and social sciences to understand how transitions happen in the agri-food systems. She has hands-on experience with farmers, policymakers, and scientists across multiple countries, and her work focuses on defining transition pathways, land use governance, soil health, and behavioral insights. She brings a holistic lens to understanding how systemic change can be supported on the ground. Joining her is Louis Tessier from Ilvo. Louis supports the scientific coordination of Emphasis and leads the Belgian case study. His expertise lies in connecting local farmer realities with broader system dynamics and translating those insights into practical transition strategies. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation.
Glad to be here.
Okay, I think we need to set a starting point for today's episode that is going to be quite complex also from a methodological point of view, but so important for a project like Emphasis. So I would start to try to understand what are the theories of change and how they have been used in a project like Emphasis.
Yeah, so theories of change are a detailed explanation and a roadmap of how to make change happen in a specific context. So they really describe how and why a desired change can happen. So they assess and they map a current situation, so a context, and they locate the interventions to make this change happen in the map, and they really trace the effects of these interventions until the outcomes. So the whole pathways of this change and how this change, how these interventions make the system reconfigure the system to deliver this desired change. So it implies to first really clearly define the goal, so the long-term goal. What is the change that we want to see happen in the system? And also to identify the midterm objectives. So what are the objectives that we need to meet to make this overarching goal happen? And we also have to assess why it is not happening. So what are the lock-ins in the systems? Where is it blocked or where is it stuck? And from there, then we can identify interventions. So like strategic actions of like how where to intervene in the system. So in some, theory of change is really a theory, so a set of assumptions that together clarify what are the barriers preventing the change to happen, what are the blockages, the lock-ins, what are the leverage points that we need to activate, how do we intervene to make change happen, and importantly also, who needs to be involved and how, so where and by whom can these barriers be lifted? Like who has agency to do that, and so how do we need to involve? So that's in a nutshell what theories of change are. In Emphasis, we use this really as a roadmap for so the desired goal we want to reach in Emphasis is really transformation towards sustainable farming systems. So that is really the goal of the theories of change we're developing. And so we're doing this at case study level. That's where Louis has been very much involved. And we're also doing this at a higher perspective, so to say, so at the EU landscape level. And that is useful for actors and at least for the EU landscape level, for also EU policymakers. Because we are, for the case-specific theories of change, but also for the European theory of change, we're really taking a systems perspective, and I think that is a bit what we're doing differently in Emphasis. We're developing these theories of change, looking at the whole systems. And the idea really is to develop a shared understanding for the actors and a shared vision for change, so that it can, so that we can coordinate action in a collaborative way.
Okay, thank you for a relatively simple answer to a complex question. I think also our listener will understand is that we have developed results in different areas of work, because we have discussed already results at policy level, we have discussed results at business level, we had a discussion on the static models, so the causal loop diagrams. We have even discussed how to bring something that is static towards something that is dynamic. Now I would like to understand, how do you design these theories of change, and actually what is the process, and how do you integrate results from other areas of work if you do so?
Yeah, so I think our magic trick in Emphasis is that we are using the systems-based theory of change. So in other work where we try to understand the situation, the problem situation, we've been making these maps, these causal loop diagrams, these actor maps, and they represent the system. But the point is to change it. And the thing is that we use these maps to also envision that change and look at, okay, when we see these causal loop diagrams that represent the system, we ask stakeholders, so we bring participants from a variety of different backgrounds, but also different agency within the system, so business actors, policy actors, farmers, researchers, all with their own competences. We bring them together and let them have a look at these maps and say, like, okay, where are the blockages? Where in the system can we push? And how does that then create a dynamic? And then also looking at the actor maps, who can push there, or who should we approach that is not among us that can deliver that change. And so it allows us through the systems-based theory of change to grapple with complexity and do that together with stakeholders. And that's very helpful, and that's what's also what we have found in the different case studies, where through these systems maps and by understand and playing with them, we the stakeholders also get strategic insight.
Okay, and I know, Louis, you're also case study coordinator. So you did this also on the ground besides doing it on the methodological side, let's say. And could you drive us through that process that you have just mentioned, maybe more at case study level?
So we developed in Emphasis a 30-page methodology. It was very detailed, and it was detailed because a lot of different steps matter. The first step is actually to prepare the stakeholder environment. And what does that mean is making sure that you have the right people there. Because if you only have people that know a lot but can't actually do a lot, then there's not a lot of possibilities there. So making sure that you have a good group of like a coalition that is also aligned around a certain goal is important. And then what we did was we brought them together, made sure that there was coffee, that there were some snacks, and explained, look, these are these maps, and look at them, like see if this is indeed how you understand the system. What would you change? Have we correctly assessed it? But more than just making the picture perfect, it's about, okay, but what can we do with this? And then there was this process of like looking at these causal loop diagrams and seeing like, okay, where can we push? And the same with the actors, as I explained. And then putting that together and identifying strategic interventions on these leverage points that then lead to the final outcome. So and we did that in 10 case studies.
Yeah, I think that the process is really important. I think the participatory process was very unique to Emphasis in the way we did it. What's also very unique to the Emphasis approach in developing these theories of change is the fact that we really combined behavioral factors with systemic factors. So classic theories of change, or the classic approach to theories of change, were critiqued to be very linear and sometimes simplistic. And so we went above this and really, combining this behavioral and systemic factors, and also looking not only at linear pathways of interventions, but also at feedback loops and ripple effects and unintended consequences. So like when we intervene in the system, we did not only look at, okay, how does that impact sustainable farming system or just one area in the system. We looked at how does it impact all the areas in this system and what are the ripple effects, etc. So I think that this is very unique to the approach we developed, and the participatory process, of course, as well, which also meant that, as always, when you work with stakeholders, there is a certain level of bias, and also because you select stakeholders or people the actors with whom you develop these maps, and you make choices. So there's always a degree of subjectivity or bias. And so here we also worked with like expert teams. We work with like behavioral studies experts and also like policy experts, and to also mitigate this bias. And we go through like validation processes of the outcomes of these maps and the outcomes of these maps. Also with experts, but also with actors and stakeholders. So there's a validation process also to check and to mitigate this bias.
To give an illustration when we're talking about unintended consequences or ripple effects. So this is really about complexity. In the Flemish case, for example, which is about organic vegetable farming, which we want to see a growth in, like the systems map clearly showed that if you would just push vegetable farmers to switch to organic farming without there being a market and have being clear about, okay, to whom are we going to sell that, you can get to a situation where you immediately collapse the price. And that, of course, ruins the business case for organic vegetable farming. So you need to also have a plan on the consumer side. However, if you would just focus on the consumer side without having a coordinated action along the local value chain, making sure that there is a local supply, you might just end up importing a lot of organic vegetables. So, and this is where also the stakeholders understood that in order to be successful here, we need to work together. Retailers need to make sure that consumers are aware about organic, about the added value there. The same with like the government can do a lot there as well. And there needs to be coordination from the advisors, the farmer advisors, to the farmers, to the processing and the distribution, to make sure and that there are commitments there that, okay, if the consumers are indeed interested, that or the local vegetable farmers in Flanders can deliver that product to them.
Yes, thank you for this specific example. I think it helps a lot to understand in practice how this is done, because of course when we look at it from a methodological perspective, it's very complex, but at the end when you work with stakeholders on the ground, you need to be able to basically simplify this methodology, or if possible even not consider it, and to actually present it to them as something that they can comprehend and use and that they can benefit from. So how did that work? It's like, how did you manage at case study level to make them understand the usefulness of these theories of change? And what were their opinions? Or like, were they surprised by the results? Or if you have some insights from specifically your case study, or if you have insights from other case studies.
Yeah, so this... So first of all, we shouldn't underestimate our stakeholders. Like they understand that they live in a complex world, but for them it's difficult to grasp it all and to make it concrete. And these systems maps help them with that. They see, like by having those systems maps, they understand like, okay, indeed, like these are all these actors involved. And indeed, there are like multiple dynamics, like it's the market, it's the knowledge system, it's also infrastructure and so on. And by having those, like stakeholders can start referring to an object, like this boundary object of the systems maps, and develop a new and shared understanding. For example, in the German case on big production systems in Brandenburg. There, I just heard it from Elisabeth from Humboldt Universität. The stakeholders there are still talking about those maps. They are still because they've gotten strategic insight through that exercise, and they're still using it to think about the next step. And of course, the world changes, obviously. but that also makes it a thing that can live and can be used further to coordinate action.
I think it really allows stakeholders to realize or to understand also how they can create coalitions, or how they can how their individual actions actually together can foster change or create also momentum to reach this desired change collectively. So that's why also we have to activate multiple leverage points in the system. It's not one intervention in the system that will change the system. So we have all these stakeholders, we work with them, and we really look at, okay, like who can activate what in the system. And it's not that, of course, they're interested in maybe changing the system and they want the same desired change. But at the end of the day, they also have a business or an agenda. They have their own interests. So leverage points, it's really this strategic, where can we strategically intervene in the system so that different actors can take action, and that these actions together really create this transformative change that we want in the system.
Okay, so because I also catch before that you talked about leverage points, and indeed I wanted to ask you, and you anticipated my question on what are these leverage points? And as you explain it right now, my understanding is that basically they are at the crossroad of some complexity and some let's say various stakeholder crossroad, I would say, that gives the opportunity, if some change is taken, to improve towards the goal of the wish change, let's say. Is that correct? Or can you help me try to simplify it and maybe even to bring it down to some example from the case study? If
I can give a simple definition of leverage points. I think Louis probably has plenty of good examples, but in simple words, a leverage point, how we conceive this is really where small interventions in the system can yield big results. So it's really strategic areas of where to intervene in the system. Maybe because it will unlock a major situation, maybe because it will have important ripple effects that will unlock multiple small areas in the system, but it's really, interventions that can have really big results in the system. So that's like really in simple words.
And how do you identify it specifically?
I think, that's where we can come in.
By looking at the maps. So I think it's important to stress why leverage points, like identifying that is important, is because actors on the ground have limited resources. And so they can't afford to just keep on pushing against the wall. Like they need to use their resources strategically. And if we then look at the maps and see that, okay, if we push on this, like for example, like, okay, if we are going to throw a lot of organic vegetables on the market, that will just collapse the price. You understand, like if we will have been throwing a lot of money just in a hole. So clearly that's a bad idea. But for example, if you can think an interesting intervention is public procurement, where governments make sure that a percentage of the food that is being sold at schools in the various in government buildings is organic. It creates multiple things. On the one hand, farmers have a secure sales channel. On the other hand, it creates an opportunity for consumers to eat and taste organic food, often at an affordable price. And it creates an awareness, often even with people that work in the government, that they say like, yeah, actually this is a normal thing. And you get a situation where like public support also generates consumer support, more public support, and then also support from the farmers. And so these are like these type of actions that with quite limited amount of resources can do a lot. And you get there by studying these interactions. And you can also like assess one good idea next to another good idea, because there are plenty of ideas, but which ones really could make a difference.
And you do that with the stakeholders. So looking at the map, you identify these different points, and then you can try to discuss with them and judge with them together which maybe are more promising.
Yes, it's absolutely important that you do it with the stakeholders, because they will do it. It's not like we are researchers, case study coordinators. We don't have it's not our role So they need to be convinced about it. And therefore, like they need to get that strategic insight. They need to be on board on that action. Otherwise, it's just a recommendation.
And often, often what happens is that where we identify blockages and lock-ins, that's usually where strong leverage points are, because it's just the other side of the...
It's by removing the blockage and or
Yeah.
the barrier, basically you can unleash a lot of change.
Exactly, yeah. So it's often an indicator of where we can intervene, also where it's locked.
Okay, that's very interesting. And okay, now we discussed indeed theories of change at case study level. And my understanding is that emphasis goes beyond that, So it goes beyond case study level theories of change. It moves forward and it goes towards cross case studies theories of change and the EU level theories of change. As I said also in other podcasts, I think it's always important to stress the fact that we are recording the podcast 10 months before the end of the project, and some areas of work of the project are still ongoing, this being one of them. So it's important also to understand what has been done so far, but that also more work will be delivered in the next 10 months. So yeah, please, if you can guide me through this process that to me seems very complex.
Yeah, so the next step for us, and that's really what we're actively working on now, together with Louis and also with Rebecca from FIBL. So we are taking a more European Union perspective on these theories of change. So we're really looking at how these case study systems are embedded in the broader EU landscape. So we're really taking this EU landscape perspective to really understand the change pathways and processes across scales, so from local to EU or above, and vice versa. So looking at interventions, probably more at EU level, but then at the pathways of these interventions and how they interact in the system across scales. Yeah, so that's in a nutshell what we are, let's say, the last phase of this theories of change project with an emphasis.
Yeah, it's important to understand that change unfolds at different levels and that they interact. I'll give an example. There's one case in France and Wallonia where we were looking at the agro-environmental climate measures in Europe, in those specific areas. Of course, these are elements that are defined by the Common Agricultural Policy. And what the case study coordinators identified there from UC Louvain is that a lot of things can be done by local actors, really on creating trust among advisors, farmers, also within like the regional government, to make these measures more attractive but also more effective. But one of the key problems is that there's limited budget made available to these agro-environmental climate measures. And these type of discussions, they really unfold at the EU level. And that is something that the actors understand, the local actors understand. But somehow they also realized we should develop a strategy to influence that process and how to create a kind of like an advocacy campaign around that, and who to involve there and to be strategic about it. So that's how like the case can play the scales and create by addressing the higher level to create a dynamic at the lower level again. Of course, it goes the other way around and as well. So if big changes are made regarding, for example, the Common Agricultural Policy, that can really shift things. Same with the whole geopolitical situation and the market shifts there. How like consumers perceive their budgets that can make a dramatic difference. But then it's also about for case actors to anticipate that, and then also, and that's the responsibility and emphasis, is also to kind of make sure that EU level actors, and we're not only talking about policy actors but also businesses, are aware of like, their effects, the effects of their choices in. And also their responsibility and the opportunities that lie in making the transformation of success in Europe.
Okay.
So it's. I think what we're trying to achieve is really, in the end, a practical guide for policymakers, businesses, as we said, and also researchers, to design and coordinate and scale interventions that can enable transformations towards sustainable farming systems across the EU. So it's really this like practical guide we want to give to multiple actors.
Okay, thank you. I think you both very well explain what is the impact, let's say, of these theories of change at EU level, but also at local level, and how they can also be used by policymakers, for instance. I have two main questions for you that are connected between each other. The first one is indeed, how are you planning to deliver these guidelines to the right people, let's say, people that will best use these results? And also for anybody else who is interested and who is listening to this podcast to know more about the work you have done in emphasis on this topic, and maybe to the different theories of change of the various case studies, where will they find them and what type of material they will find?
So a major outcome that we're looking for is to support researchers, but also people on the ground with methodologies to create a change. And we are organizing a MOOC, which is a massive online, I don't know the second but massive online something course.
Okay, I think massive open access online
open
course.
access.
Okay,
exactly.
let's.
We can keep it. That's a nice thing to do. No problem.
No, we'll do it.
Okay, let's cut.
Okay, so in emphasis, we're organizing a mass online open access course. So these will be several modules where we will touch on different things, like how to develop causal loop diagrams, value network maps, what is systems thinking, behavioral experiments at smell, but also how to use those maps, those tools, then to foster change. And we will be organizing as well a summer school in July, and hopefully that will also be carried out further, where we really want to work on systems mapping for systems change, right? Of course, for the specific case findings, we have the webinars, we have the deliverables that I think will soon be out. And I'm also aware that there's multiple case study coordinators working on specific publications regarding their theory of change, including my own.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there will be a final deliverable, a report with the final EU landscape map, with all the guidelines, or like with the full theory of change that we developed, that will be publicly available. So I mean, that's available for anyone, and hopefully, policymakers and business actors and whoever is interested can use this. There will be, I mean, for researchers, there will be also scientific publications, obviously. That's all still in the pipeline, but I mean, the idea is also to publish some papers about this. But I think, the MOOC and the summer school, that's really where we can disseminate in more simple words also to the wider public, and especially the MOOC. I mean, the MOOC is really intended to be a introductory course in also simple terms, and a very accessible course of all the knowledge that we have generated through this very complex project. And there's so much to say, but so the MOOC is intended to be very accessible and for the general public in general as well, not only for researchers or experts, etc.
So I very much look forward to the MOOCs, and definitely on the website we will let everybody know once they're ready, and they will be accessible, freely accessible. And I want to thank you once more for joining me today and for providing clarity to such complex topic. So thank you, Louis, and thank you, Elsa, for coming here today.
Thank you. Thanks, Davide.
Thank you. It's been a blast.